The transmission came through garbled, pixelated, the desperate face of Princess Rila barely visible through the static. Blood trickled from her temple as explosions rocked the royal palace of Draken Prime. Earth, please respond. The Council ships appeared without warning. They're targeting civilian centers. Our planetary shields are failing. A thunderous crash sent the camera spinning. When it stabilized, Rila was sprawled on the floor, her silver-scaled skin dull with dust and blood. She crawled toward the transmitter, her violet eyes wide with fear and betrayal. "We believed in you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Don't let silence be your final answer." The transmission cut to black. In his isolated cabin on Earth's northernmost continent, Admiral Elias Rourke watched the recording for the 10th time, his weathered face illuminated by the hologram's glow. The room was sparse, the walls adorned only with a faded star chart and a single photograph of the First Fleet at full formation, taken 3 decades ago before Earth's withdrawal from galactic politics. Snow pelted against the windows as he poured another glass of whiskey with a trembling hand. The Drakens, an honorable, proud race who had stood with humanity when the rest of the galaxy turned their backs during the final war. And now they were gone, erased by the very galactic assembly that claimed to stand for peace and cooperation. A sharp knock interrupted his thoughts. He didn't need to ask who it was. Only one person knew where to find him. "It's open," he called, his voice rough from disuse. The door swung open to reveal Commander Diana Vega, bundled in a regulation Earth Navy coat, snow dusting her dark hair. Her eyes, once bright with idealism, now matched the steely gray of the winter sky. "They've called an emergency meeting of the Orbital Council," she said without preamble. "They want you there." Rourke laughed bitterly. 300 years of silence, and now they want the old war dog back? "Tell them I died years ago. The Drakenites are dead, Admiral. All of them. 30 billion souls." Rourke closed his eyes. "And what does Earth propose to do about it? Issue a strongly worded complaint to the Assembly? Request trade sanctions? That's why they need you. The Hawks want immediate retaliation. The Doves want to pretend it never happened." Vega stepped closer. Neither path leads to justice. Rourke stood, moving to the window. Below, the frozen lake stretched endlessly toward the horizon, a perfect mirror for the emptiness he felt. "Justice," he repeated, testing the word on his tongue like an unfamiliar food. "There is no justice in war, Commander. Only survival or extinction. I learned that lesson on Proxima Centauri. And yet you're the one who taught me that we fight not for vengeance, but for those who cannot fight for themselves." Vega placed a data crystal on the table. "This contains the full intelligence report on the attack. And something else, the activation codes for Helion Base." Rourke's head snapped up. Helion was decommissioned after the treaty. Officially, Vega's expression remained neutral. "You have 12 hours to decide, Admiral. Earth will act with or without you." After she left, Rourke sat motionless, staring at the crystal. Helion Base, the moon facility where Earth's most devastating warships had been constructed. Ships designed not just to win battles, but to erase the enemy from memory. Ships he had helped design before he understood their true power. He inserted the crystal into his outdated terminal. The footage from Draken Prime played again, but this time continuing past what he'd seen. After Rila's plea came images that turned his blood to ice. Orbital bombardment of cities, systematic destruction of cultural centers, assembly peacekeepers herding survivors into camps. And then, the final image, the Galactic Assembly's High Chancellor, the Serpentine Zaltor, addressing his council. "The Draken threat has been neutralized. Their alliance with the Terrans made them unpredictable. Let this serve as a lesson to any who would align with humanity. Earth remains isolated by choice. We simply ensured they remain isolated by circumstance as well." The recording ended. Rourke stood, his decision made. Justice would come, after all. The orbital council chambers hung, suspended above Earth like a gleaming silver pendant, artificial gravity creating a perfect simulation of Earth's natural pull. But today, the assembled representatives felt a different weight pressing down on them. the burden of choosing between peace and war, between principle and pragmatism. Rourke entered silently, his ancient admiral's uniform still fitting his tall frame, though the medals and insignia had been removed. The chamber fell quiet as he took his position at the speaker's podium, facing the 30 representatives of Earth continents and off-world colonies. "You've seen the evidence," he began without introduction. "You've watched our only ally in the galaxy burn. Now you want me to tell you what to do." The European Union representative, a severe woman with cybernetic enhancements glittering at her temples, leaned forward. "We want your assessment, Admiral. Your expertise." "My expertise," Rourke repeated, "is in destruction, Ambassador Liu. I know precisely how to rain fire upon our enemies. I know exactly which planets to target, which supply lines to sever, which leadership to eliminate. I am very, very good at war." He swept his gaze across the chamber. "But that's not what you're really asking. You're asking if I believe we should go to war. And my answer is no." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the assembly. "No." The Martian representative stood, his genetically adapted skin flushed dark red. "The assembly slaughtered our allies. They openly admitted it was a message to those who would align with us." "I said no to war," Rourke clarified. "War implies a contest between opponents. What I propose is not war, but justice. Swift, irrefutable, and absolute." He touched the console before him, and a holographic display of the solar system materialized above the chamber floor. For 3 centuries, Earth has maintained a policy of isolation, while secretly preparing for this very moment. The Assembly believes us weak and outdated. They don't know that while we withdrew from their politics, we never stopped advancing our technology. The hologram zoomed in on Luna, Earth's moon, rotating to reveal a hidden installation on the far side, carved into the barren surface. Helion Base houses 3 ships: the Oblivion's Edge, the Hammer of Dawn, and the Silent Requiem. Each represents the pinnacle of Terran military engineering. Each can deliver the kind of justice that makes history remember. The North American representative, a young woman barely in her 30s, stood. "And who will command these vessels, Admiral?" "You." "No." Rourke's voice was firm. "I will coordinate the operation, but I'm not suited for this new kind of warfare. We need commanders who understand both justice and mercy, who can execute our mission without losing their humanity." His eyes found a uniformed figure standing silently at the back of the chamber. Lieutenant Sora Nakamura, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. The daughter of Counselor Nakamura, who had cast the deciding vote for Earth's withdrawal from galactic affairs 3 centuries ago. "Lieutenant Nakamura," he called. "Step forward." Surprised, Sora approached the center of the chamber, her boots echoing on the marble floor. "Your file says you've studied both galactic law and advanced combat tactics. You've also personally lost family on Draken Prime during the attack. Your maternal grandparents were diplomatic attaches there." She nodded once, sharply. "Yes, Admiral. And yet your father voted against intervention when the first distress signals came from Draken." Her jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. "My father's decisions are his own. Mine are guided by my oath to Earth and to justice." Rourke studied her for a long moment. The Oblivion's Edge needs a commander. Someone who understands the cost of both action and inaction. Someone who can carry the weight of billions of lives. Sora's eyes widened. "Sir, there are more experienced officers." "Experience isn't what this mission requires, Lieutenant. It requires clarity of purpose." Rourke turned back to the Council. "The same applies to every aspect of Operation Silent Memory. We don't seek destruction for destruction's sake. We seek to restore balance to a galaxy that has forgotten Earth's resolve." The African Union representative stood, her voice resonant in the quiet chamber. "And what exactly does this operation entail, Admiral? How much blood will it cost?" Rourke's expression hardened. "They destroyed our allies, Madam Representative. The only blood I intend to spill belongs to those who made that decision. The Assembly leadership will face justice. The rest will face a choice: stand with us in building something better, or stand against us and be remembered only in history books." He nodded toward a technician, who activated another hologram. This one showing the known locations of galactic assembly outposts, monitoring stations, and military installations throughout nearby star systems. We begin by going dark. Complete communications blackout across the solar system. Then we eliminate every surveillance asset the assembly has placed near our space, silently, leaving no evidence of our involvement. Let them wonder what happened. Let them fear the silence, as we have learned to do. The representatives exchanged glances, a mixture of apprehension and grim determination spreading through the chamber. Next, we deploy our deep cover operatives throughout assembly space. For decades, we've been placing sleeper agents in key positions. When activated, they'll begin systematic sabotage of military communications and defense systems. You've been planning this for centuries, the Martian representative said, voice tinged with awe. Earth has never trusted the assembly, Rourke confirmed. We've maintained peace because it was practical, not because we believed in their vision. Now they've shown their true nature, and we'll show ours. He straightened, hands clasped behind his back. I need your unanimous approval to proceed. This isn't a military coup. This is Earth acting as one. The chamber fell silent as the representatives looked at one another. Finally, Ambassador Liu spoke. Put to a vote, then. One by one, the representatives cast their votes. When the final tally appeared, it was unanimous. Operation Silent Memory would commence. As the council filed out, Rourke approached Lieutenant Sora. You have 12 hours to select your crew, he told her. Choose carefully. Once we begin, there's no turning back. She met his gaze, her eyes reflecting the same steel he'd once seen in his own. May I ask a question, Admiral? Of course. Why me? The truth. Rourke considered her for a moment. Because you hate this mission, Lieutenant. You hate what we have to do. And that's exactly the perspective I need in command of our most powerful weapon. Someone who will use it only when absolutely necessary. Sora straightened. I won't disappoint you, sir. It's not me you need to worry about disappointing, Rourke replied softly. It's the 30 billion ghosts watching over your shoulder. The lunar surface was a ghostly landscape of ancient impact craters and barren regolith, undisturbed save for the occasional automated mining crawler. Helion Base, buried deep beneath the moon's surface, had been officially decommissioned 290 years ago, a gesture of peace when Earth signed the Galactic Accord. Unofficially, it had never stopped functioning. Sora stood beside Admiral Rourke in the massive underground hangar, staring up at the colossal warship that would soon be hers to command. The Oblivion's Edge resembled no conventional spacecraft she had ever seen. Its hull was a deep, non-reflective black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its shape defied standard aerodynamic principles, with angular protrusions and recessed sections that appeared almost organic in their complexity. It doesn't look like a warship, she murmured. That's intentional, Rourke replied. The assembly's sensors are calibrated to detect specific configurations. The edge will register as background radiation, if it registers at all. Across the hangar, 2 other vessels were undergoing final preparations. The Hammer of Dawn gleamed with a faint golden hue, its more conventional design belying its devastating capabilities. The Silent Requiem, smallest of the 3, resembled a predatory bird. Its wings swept forward aggressively. Each ship serves a specific purpose, Rourke explained as they walked. The Edge is our scalpel, precise, invisible, capable of surgical strikes without detection. The Hammer is our battering ram, raw power designed to overcome any defense. And the Requiem is our ghost. It can infiltrate any system, physical or digital, leaving no trace of its presence. They approached a group of officers waiting near the base of the Oblivion's Edge. Sora recognized some faces from the Academy, others from various postings throughout the system. All elite, all specialists in their fields. Your crew, Rourke said, handpicked for both skill and discretion. A tall man with Martian facial tattoos stepped forward. Lieutenant Commander Darius Reed, Tactical Officer. It's an honor to serve under you, Lieutenant. The honor's mine, Sora replied automatically, still struggling to process the enormity of her new command. We've studied the ship's capabilities extensively, Reed continued. There's nothing like it in known space. The gravitational inversion drive alone puts us generations ahead of assembly technology. Sora turned to Rourke. Gravitational inversion. It doesn't move through space in the conventional sense, Rourke explained. It creates a localized distortion that effectively pulls its destination toward it while pushing its origin point away. To an observer, it simply vanishes from one location and appears at another. That's impossible, Sora said. 300 years ago, perhaps. Earth has had time to develop while the assembly grew complacent. A rhythmic alarm sounded throughout the base, followed by an automated voice. All personnel to primary stations. Phase 1 initiating in 60 minutes. Rourke checked his chronometer. Time to begin. The other ships are already crewed and prepared. Once you're aboard, you'll receive your specific mission parameters. As Sora moved to follow her new crew toward the boarding ramp, Rourke caught her arm. Lieutenant, he said quietly, remember why we fight. Not for vengeance, but for justice. Not for Earth alone, but for a galaxy where betrayal carries consequences. She nodded. And what will you be doing, Admiral? A ghost of a smile crossed his weathered face. I'll be ensuring our house is in order before we set it on fire. Aboard the Oblivion's edge, Sora settled into the command chair, its adaptive material conforming to her body. The bridge was unlike any conventional starship. There were no windows, no traditional view screens. Instead, a three-dimensional holographic display surrounded the command area, providing a perfect 360-degree representation of the ship's surroundings. All systems online, reported the chief engineer, a heavy-set woman with Europa colony markings on her hands. Gravitational inversion drive spinning up to operational parameters. Weapons systems primed and calibrated, added read from the tactical station. Phantom protocols engaged were electromagnetic ghosts. Sora took a deep breath. Communications, secure and isolated, came the reply from a young officer with cybernetic auditory implants. We can receive Admiral Rourke's transmissions, but nothing gets out unless you specifically authorize it. Very well. Sora accessed her command interface, reviewing the mission parameters that had just been transmitted. Our first target is the Assembly Monitoring Station in the Kuiper Belt. We're to eliminate it without triggering any distress signals. Reed nodded. Simple enough. Their automated systems report status every 30 minutes. We time our strike between reports, and the Assembly won't know it's gone until the next check-in fails. And by then, Sora continued, we'll have already moved on to the next target. She scanned the rest of the mission brief. We're to eliminate every monitoring asset in the solar system within 12 hours. No survivors, no debris, no evidence. She looked up at her crew, searching their faces for hesitation or doubt. She found none. Helm, set course for the Kuiper Belt station. Engineer, initiate gravitational inversion on my mark. She straightened in her chair. Let's remind the galaxy why they once feared Earth. Inversion drive ready, Lieutenant, the engineer reported. Sora closed her eyes briefly, thinking of her grandparents who had died on Draken Prime, of the billions of innocents slaughtered to send a message to Earth. Mark! The world around them seemed to fold inward, reality itself compressing to a single point before expanding again. The sensation lasted less than a second, but left everyone on the bridge momentarily disoriented. When they recovered, the holographic display showed their new position. 50 kilometers from the Assembly Monitoring Station, a cylindrical structure bristling with sensor arrays and communication equipment. Target acquired, Reed announced. They haven't detected us. Sora studied the station. Approximately 20 personnel would be aboard. Beings who might not have been directly involved in the decision to destroy Draken Prime, but who served the Assembly that had ordered its annihilation. Deploy capture drones, she ordered. I want their data cores intact for analysis. And the personnel? Reed asked. Sora hesitated only for a moment. Offer them surrender. Anyone who resists. She left the sentence unfinished. Understood. Deploying drones now. Outside the ship, A swarm of small, spherical devices detached from the hull, propelling themselves silently toward the station. Within minutes, they had breached the outer defenses and entered the structure. Drones have infiltrated all levels, Reed reported. Station personnel are being contained. 2 attempted to destroy data terminals and were neutralized. The rest have surrendered. Good. Have the prisoners transferred to holding cells. Once we've extracted all useful intelligence, we'll deliver them to the rendezvous point. Over the next 8 hours, the Oblivion's edge moved methodically through the solar system, eliminating every trace of assembly surveillance. The Hammer of Dawn and Silent Requiem followed parallel tracks, executing their own missions with ruthless efficiency. By the time the last assembly outpost fell, a heavily armed military facility orbiting Neptune, not a single external communication had escaped the solar system. Earth had gone dark, and no one in the galaxy knew why. On the bridge of the Oblivion's edge, Sora received a direct transmission from Admiral Rourke. Phase 1 complete, his holographic form reported. All assembly assets in our system have been neutralized. Phase 2 begins in 6 hours. The activation of our deep cover operatives throughout assembly space. What are our orders until then? Sora asked. Return to Helion Base for equipment upgrades and crew rotation. You've done well, Lieutenant. Sora nodded, but couldn't bring herself to feel pride in their accomplishments. So far, they had eliminated only the eyes and ears of their enemy. The real test would come when they confronted the assembly directly. Sir, she said before Rourke could terminate the transmission, the prisoners we've taken. What happens to them? Rourke's expression remained neutral. They'll be processed according to their level of involvement. Those who are simply following orders will be detained until hostilities end. Those with knowledge of the Draken operation will face the same justice as their leadership. And what justice is that exactly? Rourke studied her for a long moment. That hasn't been decided yet, Lieutenant. But rest assured, it won't be the swift death they gave the Drakenites. Some things deserve to be remembered. The transmission ended, leaving Sora alone with her thoughts and the weight of command. Across the galaxy, deep within the opulent chambers of the Galactic Assembly's central world of Lorvax, High Chancellor Zaltor convened an emergency session of the ruling council. His serpentine form coiled anxiously around the elevated speaker's platform as representatives from 200 stellar nations filled the amphitheater. Something is happening in the Terran system, he announced without preamble, his multifaceted eyes scanning the assembly. All our monitoring stations have gone silent simultaneously. Patrol vessels sent to investigate have failed to report back. A murmur spread through the gathered dignitaries. The Palaxian ambassador, a being of living crystal, rose from her seat. Is it possible their star has gone nova? Such an event could explain the communications disruption. Our long-range stellar observation indicates no unusual activity from Sol, Zaltor replied. This silence is selective, deliberate. The humans are primitives, scoffed the hegemony representative, his exoskeleton clicking as he gestured dismissively. They've been isolated for centuries, their technology stagnant. Perhaps they've suffered some internal catastrophe. Primitives who nonetheless managed to fight us to a standstill in the final war, countered an elderly Oanari diplomat. Primitives who developed gravitational manipulation while the rest of us were still using conventional faster-than-light drives. Zaltor raised a clawed appendage for silence. Whatever the cause, we must investigate. I propose sending a diplomatic mission to Earth's orbital boundary. If they've suffered some disaster, we can offer humanitarian aid. If they're preparing for aggression, we need to know immediately. The vote was swift and unanimous. A diplomatic mission would depart within the day, escorted by a military contingent as a precaution. As the session adjourned, Zaltor slithered into a private chamber where his most trusted advisors waited. His external composure vanished, replaced by naked anxiety. They know, he hissed. The Terrans know what we did to Draken Prime. Impossible, objected his military advisor, a cybernetically enhanced veteran of multiple campaigns. All evidence was eliminated. The operation was perfect. Then explain the silence. Explain why every monitoring station went dark at precisely the same moment. Zaltor's scales flushed with agitation. We awakened something. Something that has been waiting. Even if they know, what can they do? The advisor asked. Their fleet is outdated, their weapons obsolete. The defensive grid around Lorvax alone could repel anything they might send. Zaltor wasn't reassured. Double the patrols. Triple the sensor sweeps. And prepare a statement denying any assembly involvement in the Draken incident. Claim it was a natural disaster. Perhaps we can still contain this. But even as he issued the orders, a cold certainty gripped him. The silence from Earth wasn't the silence of defeat or disaster. It was the silence of a predator before it strikes. Throughout assembly space, carefully placed human operatives received a simple coded message hidden in standard communications traffic. Asterisk, we remember. Asterisk. Within hours, critical systems began failing across dozens of worlds. Defense grids experienced unexplained power fluctuations. Communications relays mysteriously rerouted messages to dead ends. Automated financial systems transferred massive sums to non-existent accounts. No alarm sounded. No emergency protocols activated. The infiltration was too subtle, too precisely orchestrated to trigger conventional security measures. By the time assembly authorities realized they were under attack, their ability to coordinate a response had been systematically dismantled. On the Oblivion's edge, now upgraded with additional stealth capabilities, Sora reviewed the latest intelligence with her command staff. Phase 2 has exceeded expectations, she informed them. 97% of our operatives successfully executed their assignments. The Assembly's military command structure is in disarray. Their defensive capabilities are degraded by an estimated 60%. Then it's time for Phase 3, Lieutenant Commander Reed said, his expression grim but determined. Sora nodded. Direct intervention. The Edge will lead a strike force to Lorvax itself, targeting the Assembly leadership. The Hammer of Dawn will eliminate their primary military installation at Sector 7. The Silent Requiem will extract our operatives and any surviving Drakonites being held in Assembly detention centers. The Assembly fleet still outnumbers us thousands to one, pointed out the navigation officer. Even with their coordination compromised, they could overwhelm us through sheer numbers. They could, Sora agreed, if they could find us, if they could track us, if they could hit us. But our ships don't move like theirs, don't fight like theirs, don't die like theirs. She stood, addressing the entire bridge crew. Remember what they did to Draken Prime. Remember why we fight. A solemn determination settled over the bridge. Set course for Lorvax, Sora ordered. Gravitational inversion on my mark. The diplomatic mission to Earth never reached its destination. As the assembly vessels approached the orbital boundary of the Sol system, they found only debris, the remnants of monitoring stations, patrol ships, and communication relays drifting in the cold void. Before they could report their findings, a shadow passed over them, a vessel of impossible configuration, absorbing rather than reflecting the distant sunlight. No warnings were issued. No demands were made. The assembly ships simply ceased to exist, atomized by weapons beyond their comprehension. On Lorvax, as night fell over the capital city, Zaltor stood on the balcony of the Chancellery, gazing up at the stars. Reports of system failures continued to flood in from across assembly space, each more concerning than the last. Chancellor, his aide called from inside, "We've lost contact with the Earth delegation." Zaltor didn't turn. "Send another. Send 10. Sir, we can't. Central Command is no longer responding to communications. Defense grid control has been locked out. We're blind." Now Zaltor turned, fear evident in his posture. "Evacuate the government district. Move everyone to the secure facility beneath the southern mountains. Activate the planetary shield. The shield generators are offline, sir. Engineers say the control systems have been completely erased. Not damaged, not hacked, but erased as if they never existed." Zaltor moved to respond, but his words died in his throat as he noticed something in the night sky, a faint distortion, like heat ripples on a summer day, spreading across the starfield. "They're here," he whispered. Aboard the Oblivion's Edge, Sora stood at the tactical station, watching as the ship's gravitational weapons calibrated for planetary assault. "Target locked," Reed reported. "Gravitational inversion field stable. We can deliver a precision strike on the Chancellery complex without civilian casualties." Sora hesitated, her finger hovering over the authorization panel. This was the moment Earth had planned for centuries. The elimination of those who had betrayed peace, who had massacred their allies. "Lieutenant," Reed prompted, "weapons are ready." In her mind, Sora saw again the final transmission from Draken Prime. Princess Riela's desperate plea, the brutal efficiency of the assembly bombardment. She heard again her grandmother's voice in their last communication before the attack, speaking of the cultural exchange program she was establishing between Draken and Earth. "Lieutenant Sora," Admiral Rourke's voice came through the command channel. "Status report." "We're in position, Admiral," she replied, awaiting final authorization. There was a pause before Rourke spoke again. "The authorization is yours to give, Lieutenant. This is your command now. Choose wisely." Sora closed her eyes, centered herself, then opened them with renewed clarity. "Tactical, adjust targeting parameters," she ordered. "I want the entire government district contained in a gravitational bubble. No destruction, just complete isolation." Reed looked up in surprise. "Sir, you heard me, Commander. They gave the Drakonites no chance to surrender, no trial, no justice. We will not make the same mistake." She activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, prepare for ground operation. Security teams to deployment stations. We're going to take them alive." "Ground operation wasn't in the mission parameters," Reed objected. "The mission parameters call for justice," Sora countered. "And justice requires a reckoning, not just destruction." She opened a channel to the other Earth vessels. "This is Lieutenant Sora of the Oblivion's Edge to all Terran ships. New operational directive. We will capture the assembly leadership for public trial. Repeat, capture, not eliminate. The galaxy will witness true justice." Within minutes, the plan was in motion. The Edge deployed its gravitational technology not as a weapon, but as containment, creating an impenetrable barrier around the government district of Lorvax's capital. Inside that bubble, time itself slowed to a crawl, rendering resistance impossible. Deployment ships descended through the atmosphere, carrying specialized teams trained for extraction operations. They moved through the frozen tableau of assembly forces, collecting the leadership one by one. Zaltor from his balcony, military commanders from their posts, intelligence directors from their bunkers. By dawn, the operation was complete. 57 high-ranking assembly officials had been taken into custody, transported to the Judicator, a massive vessel that had remained hidden in deep space until this moment. Designed specifically as a mobile tribunal, its central chamber could accommodate representatives from every affected world. Admiral Rourke stood on the bridge of the Judicator as Sora delivered her report in person. "You disobeyed direct orders, Lieutenant," he said when she had finished. "The mission called for elimination of assembly leadership." "No, sir," she replied steadily. "The mission called for justice. Destruction without accountability isn't justice. It's just more death." Rourke studied her for a long moment, then unexpectedly smiled. "Exactly the response I hoped for. The kill order was a test, Lieutenant. One you passed admirably." Sora blinked in confusion. "A test? Earth has spent 3 centuries preparing not just weapons, but a vision for the galaxy. If we had simply destroyed the assembly, we would have become what we despised." Rourke moved to the observation window, gesturing for her to join him. "Look there." Beyond the Judicator, hundreds of ships were emerging from gravitational folding. Vessels of every configuration, bearing markings from worlds long thought to be loyal assembly members. When we activated our deep cover operatives, we also sent messages to those we knew were chafing under assembly rule. They've come to witness justice being done, and perhaps to build something better afterward. "The tribunal," Sora said. You always intended a public proceeding. Justice must be seen to be done, Roar confirmed. The charges will be presented, evidence examined, and sentences delivered, all broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Sora felt a weight lift from her shoulders. And my father? Will he stand trial as well? Rourke's expression softened. Counselor Nakamura will testify, but not as a defendant. His vote for isolation was made in good faith, however mistaken it proved to be. He has agreed to serve as Earth's representative at the proceedings. And who will speak for the victims? Sora asked. For Drake and Prime? You will, Lieutenant. If you're willing. She straightened, resolve hardening her features. I am. The trial lasted 7 standard days. Representatives from 200 worlds attended, either in person or via secure transmission. The evidence against the Assembly leadership was overwhelming, not just regarding Drake and Prime, but dozens of other atrocities committed over centuries of rule. Zaltor and his inner circle were found guilty of genocide, crimes against sentient beings, and violation of the very accords they had sworn to uphold. But when the time came for sentencing, Earth surprised the gathered representatives once again. Admiral Rourke, serving as chief arbiter, rose to deliver the verdict. The convicted have committed crimes for which no punishment could truly suffice, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. If we executed them, they would become martyrs to some, monsters to others. But in either case, they would fade from memory as individuals responsible for their actions. He gestured toward the containment field where the convicted Assembly leaders waited. Instead, they will live, stripped of all rank, all privilege, all identity. They will be exiled to a habitable but isolated world, where they will spend the remainder of their natural lives in labor, helping to produce resources for the rebuilding of Drake and Prime and other worlds they destroyed. Murmurs spread through the Assembly. This was not the vengeful Earth many had expected. Furthermore, Rourke continued, the Galactic Assembly as an institution is hereby dissolved. In its place, we propose the formation of a new coalition, the Terran Pact. Not an empire, not a hierarchy, but a true alliance of equals, bound by mutual defense and respect for sovereignty. Sora, seated beside her father on the Earth delegation platform, watched as representatives began to signal their approval, tentatively at first, then with growing enthusiasm. When the proceedings concluded, she found Admiral Rourke waiting in a quiet alcove away from the celebrations beginning throughout the ship. You did well, he told her. Your testimony was powerful. Thank you, sir. She hesitated, then asked the question that had been troubling her. What happens now? To the Edge, to the other ships? They remain active, but with a new mission. The Oblivion's Edge will lead an exploration initiative, seeking out civilizations beyond our current cartography. The Hammer of Dawn becomes our primary defensive platform, protecting rebuilding efforts on devastated worlds. And the Silent Requiem will serve as our early warning system, ensuring no threat ever again catches us unprepared. Sora nodded, relieved that their purpose would continue. And my next assignment? That depends entirely on you, Lieutenant. Rourke smiled faintly. Or perhaps I should say Captain. The Edge needs a permanent commander, someone who understands both power and restraint. Before she could respond, an aide approached with urgent news. A signal had been detected from beyond the galactic boundary, a pattern too regular to be natural, too complex to be coincidental. It seems our trials are not yet over, Rourke said quietly. But whatever comes next, Earth stands ready, and this time, not alone. 1 year later, the reconstructed capital city of Drake and Prime hosted the formal signing of the Terran Pact Charter. Representatives from 300 worlds gathered beneath the crystalline dome of Unity Forge, built on the very spot where Princess Rila had sent her final plea to Earth. Admiral Rourke, now serving as Earth's diplomatic liaison, watched as Captain Sora led the honor guard escorting the surviving Drake Knight elders. Though few in number, they had begun the long process of rebuilding their civilization, aided by resources and personnel from across the new alliance. As the signing ceremony concluded, Attention turned to the memorial wall at the center of the chamber. There, inscribed in the languages of every member world, a simple message served as both remembrance and warning. We remember, and we protect, together. Beyond the Terran Pact's borders, the unknown signal continued, growing stronger each day. But whatever challenges awaited, humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not through conquest or subjugation, but through a commitment to justice that transcended revenge. And in the vastness of space, the Oblivion's Edge continued its mission, a silent guardian carrying humanity's finest into the darkness, no longer alone.